Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. Today it's another soft spoken Wednesday, and I will be sharing with you some pieces of an article that I shared in the podcast a long time ago. Now I have my podcast very, abandoned because of this Mystober series for the month of October. But I will be going back on November. I already have the research for the cases that you guys requested. So if you want to check it out, I'll have the link in the comments down below and in the description box. Now, I talked about this article on the podcast some time ago, but it really had an impact on the different cases I researched after reading this article. So, I decided to share it here on the channel because all of the cases that I've been sharing in Mystober are part of a series of videos on going after women and children. We have only a couple more cases in this series inside the series Mystober, and we're gonna end up covering Jack the Ripper, Ted Bundy, serial murderers that have sought out victims who are trusting, available, and vulnerable. So I thought it would be fitting to share with you this article about monsters among us. I think it would have been a better idea to share this before all the cases. But now, if you've been following all the cases in Mystober, then all the things that I'm going to share with you are going to start to come together. They're not going to make sense because we can't make sense out of these cases, but they're going to come together and they are going to remove the idea of what most people believe a serial killer is like. Now, just few criminals are more terrifying than serial murderers, but some popular generalizations about them are just plain wrong. That's what we're gonna be talking about today. Real life serial killers may be rare, but they've been the subject of countless articles, books, movies, and television shows, and are part of our collective nightmares. Over the years, the media has assembled an almost generic profile for such murderers. They are white male outcasts. They're evil, and some believe can be evil geniuses and sexual predators who target women and children. They are believed to keep trophies or souvenirs from their kills. Yet, the reality is more complicated than that, as defined by not me, of course, but the FBI. A serial murder is the, quote, unlawful killing of two or more victims by the same offenders in separate events. That is the description of a serial murder, according to the FBI. Criminals who fit this description are racially diverse, according to the agency, of course. The distribution of ethnicities basically matches the American population. Far from being loners, as most people believe, these people are often contributing members of society who appear normal people. Their motives can include anger, hatred of a specific category of people, or of society, of course, in general, financial gain, and a desire for fame. A killer's rationale can change or evolve over time, according to the experts. Certainly, sexual satisfaction is a common motive. Serial killers tend to choose victims who are available and vulnerable. And more than half of the 25 most ferocious modern serial killers hunted, or I should say, are still hunting today, women and children. Nevertheless, there are certain traits that repeat. The predator who targets women and children is usually male and tends to come from an abusive background. His father may have been sadistic or overly strict. His mother may have been promiscuous or smothering. In murder, the killer is believed to be retreating from the pain of his boyhood into a world in which he is in control. He is seeking gratification in the violent domination of others, especially of the people who symbolize those who abused him. A serial murderer who targets women may be trying to destroy someone who represents his cruel mother. A child slayer may be going after those who embody what he despises in himself, especially cracks in his own masculinity. Gary Leon Ridgway, America's most voracious serial killer to date, seems to have been motivated in part by a hatred of prostitutes, an insatiable desire for sex, and an obsession with necrophilia. Dubbed the Green River Killer, Ridgway confessed to murdering 71 prostitutes and runaways in Washington State and California between the 80s and 90s. He's now, at the time that wrote this article, serving 48 life sentences plus 480 years without parole. But even Ridgway, a classic serial killer, doesn't feed or it doesn't fit neatly into the supposed profile I've been sharing with you today. Quote, when I read up on serial killers, they always keep stuff. That is what Ridgway, told interrogators who asked whether he had kept souvenirs from his victims. And then he said, quote, and that's why I didn't keep stuff. Now, according to this research, serial murders make up less than 1% of the approximately 15,000 American homicides a year. So even though they may be gruesome, sad, unfair, whatever adjective you want to use for the victims of serial killers, they only make that 1% of the total homicides in a year, at least in America. Now, I'm gonna share with you a little bit about the beast, and then I'm gonna talk about something that I always wonder, and that is, what if they're unfairly accused? Let's talk about the beast. It's one of the worst serial killers in history. Confessed to killing 140 boys in Colombia, Ecuador in the 1990s. You probably know him. His name is Eduardo Garavito, a drifter, an alcoholic, from Colombia. He admitted to torturing and murdering 140 boys in a brutal 7-year spree. And this was back in the 90s. After prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence against him, he was sentenced to 52 years in prison for 2 of the crimes. One was the killing of a 14-year-old boy whose tortured body was found outside, I'm assuming it's Tunja, Colombia, in 1996. The other was the attempted rape of another boy in the western city of Villavicencio. The crime that led to his arrest in 1999. He was sentenced to the country's maximum prison term of 60 years. In a plea bargain, the sentence was reduced to 52 years and 6 months in exchange for him to agree not to contest any of the charges against him. Now, before we end this video with the question of unfairly accused people, I wanted to just point out one of the main differences in the justice system and sentencing comparing the States and some other countries. This guy admitted to murdering 140 boys in a brutal 7-year spree. Yet, he was only charged for 2. Didn't get the death penalty, which I don't think Colombia has it. That's why, or had it. That's why he got the maximum sentence. And he only got 60 years in the end. I want to tell you that if you are an American and maybe haven't traveled or really wonder these things, in other parts of the world, really, people can commit horrible crimes, and at least where I'm from, be walking back in the streets maybe 20 or 30 years later. The laws are different. The sentencing is different. Not saying it's better. Not saying it's worse. Just saying sometimes when we hear these cases, a lot of people get frustrated when I share the sentences of monsters, really, that have the possibility of getting out in the future, because those 60 years can be lowered depending on a series of factors. Recently, in the Rostov video, somebody got upset at me because I said I made a sarcastic comment, something like, well, I guess that's how they do it in Russia, because they killed this guy. He got the death penalty. He was shot in the head, and I really haven't heard of that particular method before. And this person was a little upset because I said, I guess that's how they do it in Russia. She gave a few pointers of how things changed. But guys, me sharing these things, these are just facts. And then I share my little thoughts on it. I know when I share these cases with shorter sentences, a lot of people get upset. But it's not me. I'm not a judge. I'm not telling people for how I would. Listen, I wouldn't want to do that. I think that there are certain people who are made for that job, but that's not me. So, yeah, I can't change how they do things in other parts of the world. I can only have an opinion, and I can only do what I do best, and it's make my snarky and sarcastic comments. And for those of you who've been in my channel, know what I mean by it. But we're just gonna have to agree to disagree, because those comments are just opinions. Last time I checked, opinions are not facts. So please, feel free to disagree with my thoughts on how the 60 years are not that much, in my opinion. Now, let's end this video with the question: unfairly accused? Today, some experts I don't know if they're not sure, if they are just wondering, but some believe that some historical killers were actually victims of a sinister plot. Yep. Let's talk about Gilles de Rais. The wealthy French lord was said to have kidnapped, tortured, and killed hundreds of peasant children from nearby villages. He confessed to the crime and was hanged in 1440. Despite the confession, some modern theorists believe that he was the target of a plot, especially since after his death, his prosecutor was awarded all of his land. Well, listen, I mean, maybe this is just me, but isn't it kind of weird that this prosecutor was awarded pretty much all the wealth of the guy that was hanged? Yeah, I'd wonder that too. Gilles Garnier, called the Werewolf of Dole, another French. Was described as this French hermit, was blamed for and confessed to the death and mutilation of several children. In 1572, it was believed to be that this guy, Garnier, was a werewolf. So, of course, according to their beliefs, he was burned at the stake. Now, historians now think that he was innocent. Apparently there was like some kind of a witchcraft, hysteria that was at the time kind of the popular thing. Now let's talk about another guy that his name is not Gilles or Giles or like the previous two. His name is, this is the last one too, Peter Stump. A prosperous German farmer. He was accused of killing and eating 14 victims under torture, so not interrogation, but under torture. He confessed and was beheaded in 1589 in a particularly brutal execution. I mean, if you think that the death penalty right now, it's pretty bad. Yeah, not that bad compared to this. He confessed and was beheaded in 1589, okay? It was a brutal execution, and historians still debate today if he was actually guilty. And they believe that he was a victim of a political plot against him. So there you have it. Characteristics of a serial killer that maybe you didn't know about. A little bit about the unfairness of the Beast's trial and some of the unfairly accused, according to some historians today. So, I hope that you learned something today. Tomorrow's video, it is going to close this series inside Mystober that I've been sharing since the beginning of the month, where it's murderers that going after women and children. Tomorrow it's going to close the series with the infamous Whitechapel murders. So I hope that you join me tomorrow for a new video. If you are part of the Patreon page, we're gonna have the new video not this weekend but the following one, since I'm going to be out for the weekend, out of town. It will be almost impossible to post on Saturday for Patreon. So thank you for being patient, and there will be a 2-part episode to make up for not being able to upload it as I like to do it at the beginning of the month. See you guys here, hopefully tomorrow, for another episode of Mystober.